Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about A Fable by William Faulkner. Now, before I go into some analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. So A Fable is a military story. We're looking at the setting. It's World War One. And it's 1918, and the war has been going on for many years. And this is France. I mean, you have within this work, you have the British, the French, and the Americans on one side, and you have the Germans on the other side, and men are dying left and right, and the men are pretty much very tired of it. And then you have this corporal, with his 12 disciples, which resembles Jesus Christ and his disciples, and they get an armistice going, and the both sides stop fighting. Both sides start working with one another, and there's different soldiers and different people that just come out of nowhere, and it's all about peace and no more killing, and let's all get along. It's kind of like a whole Bob Marley situation, and let's all be brothers, let's all be peaceful, everything's gonna be all right type of vibe. And I'm like, isn't this a war? So it's a very interesting work that this happens. And well, there's a lot of ripple effects after all of this takes place. Later the corporal dies. Let's not beat around the bush here. The corporal dies. He's like a Christ-like figure. He dies in between criminals. The marshal dies. The general, he dies. General Cragnon, he dies, and he was really mad because on his orders they were supposed to go on an attack and keep killing Germans, but 3,000 men were like, no, we're not doing this. And he was really angry. He wanted to kill the 3,000 men. But, this doesn't happen. But the corporal does die. The marshal does die. The general dies. The 3,000 men is kind of interesting because the number three is very, very important in Christianity. The 13, the corporal and his 12 disciples, again, that number is very significant because, Christ and his 12 disciples, that's 13, and the corporal and his 12 followers, that's 13. The way that the corporal dies for doing something that's honorable in many ways, peace and no more killing and let's end the war. That type of message is something that is above. Um, it's kind of like no one wants to die. I mean, humans, if we all could, we all want to, most, I would say 99.99 of human beings who have ever lived, we all usually want the same things. We want food on the table, we want a roof over our heads, we want to get married, have children, legacy, build legacies and all that kind of stuff. It's wash and repeat. I mean, human beings, we've been doing this forever. I mean, with the modern age, I mean, different people have said different things about what we want to be happy. But ultimately, I mean, the human race have done this over and over, wash and repeat over and over again. You want to grow up, you want to get married, you want to have kids, you want to have a good, stable job, and you want to have fun and laugh and enjoy your life with your family members. We've done this, okay? We've done this. People who say that's not human life and that's not what we want, you're just lying to yourself, okay? Because the statistics, the data shows that human beings don't want to die. Ultimately, we want to reproduce, we want to have families. I mean, there's countless numbers of love stories and love songs and movies on Netflix that depict that. That's just my 2 cents. So within this work, A Fable here, we kind of get an understanding of why the men don't want to die, of why they want peace, of why they're just tired of the killing, they're tired of dying, and even though they disobeyed their general's orders to keep on fighting and to go on this attack, we understand why. So there's a lot of things. I mean, the corporal's life, it could have been spared. I mean, supposedly he's the son of the marshal, and the marshal tries to give him an out so that he doesn't die. Again, this kind of resembles Jesus Christ because, I mean, even Peter was like, I don't want you to die. And Jesus had to be to Peter, get behind me, Satan. So Jesus had to be like, no, I'm going to do God's will. That's what I'm going to do. So, the same way the corporal was like, when the marshal tries to give him an out, he was like, no, I'm going to stand for what I stand for. And if I have to die to stand for what I stand for, that's what I'm going to do. So you do get this like Christ-like message within this work. So that's very interesting. I mean, the whole family dynamic with, the corporal being the son of the marshal and his life potentially being saved, and the women coming in within the work trying to save the corporal's life. It's all interesting, but ultimately by the end of the work a bunch of people die: the general, the corporal, the marshal. But the message lives on. The armistice kind of sets an example that human beings, look, the world's not perfect, but there's something about the human race that wants to live, that wants to survive, that wants to reproduce, that wants to go on, that there's a greater sense of brotherhood that exists between all mankind, that somewhere within all of us, I mean, human beings have done a lot of bad stuff and there's a lot of evil in the world, but somewhere in us, um, there is this want for goodness, for love, for something greater. And sometimes it shows up like this, and this is within the Christian message, within the Gospels, because with the corporal and his 12 disciples, you get this message that goes back to Christ. And what is the message of Christ? Because there's a lot about Christ within this work. The message of Christ is love. Loving God, loving your brother, loving each other. So the reason why there's peace, the reason why the corporal, it's like the corporal becomes this Christ-like figure. And what is the message for Christ? I mean, the message that Christ spreads is love, and ultimately um, that leads to the sides stop killing each other. They stop killing each other for a while, and the Germans and the British, the French and the Americans, they just stopped killing each other. And that is, peace, love, that is kindness, joy. These things are message of the gospel. And so this work does explore the beliefs of Christianity very thoroughly. So, and the ending itself resembles what ultimately happens to Christ and his followers, and how they lived for God, and their messaging about peace and love and things like that. But it's with a setting of warfare and World War One. So I'm sure throughout World War One there were things like this. There were messages like this, and maybe soldiers on either side. There's different points where they probably showed kindness to one another. So love is the most powerful thing in the universe, and you can't stop love. That's just a fact. In terms of deeper meaning here, in terms of analysis, I mean, there's a lot that you can look at. Um, I mean, the title is A Fable, and whenever I see the word fable, I'm thinking about, talking Disney characters, or, I'm thinking about, you know, mysterious magical phenomenas. Um, in war, does this happen? There are some cases. I mean, if you look at history, there are some cases where soldiers will go against their generals and go against their leadership and stop fighting, and they choose peace. Um, in terms of like, what does this say about the human race? I think it's just constant battle between light and darkness, and sometimes this killing is just, it reaches a point where nobody can take anymore, and we try to look for another way out, and usually the to find peace, to find happiness, to find joy, it usually brings us back to Christ. I mean, that's one of the biggest messages that comes out of this work. I mean, different interpretations can come to different conclusions, but I think this is like, well, we just want peace. We just want the bloodshed to stop. We just want answers, and ultimately, the answer that the corporal and his disciples came with was, "Hey, let's love each other. Let's stop the shooting. Let's be united. Germans, Americans, French, British. Let's just stop killing each other, huh?" The generals were not happy about this. They were really not happy about this because they didn't want this war to end based on these 13, outsiders. I mean, who are you to stop my war? So the generals are not happy. The German generals, the American, the French, the British, they were not happy because they want their soldiers to get out there and kill. They're generals. They're not about peace. They're about destruction and winning. But are you really winning when you're sending sons, fathers, and husbands out to die for for dying's sake? So very interesting work. But that's all I have to say about it. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.